How would you characterize the traits anyone would require for crisis management? Is there a secret formula we expect the new hires to fit into? Or are these traits a mix between personal attitudes and behaviors, values and experience? So if I were to hire someone today for a crisis management position, these would be the questions I would ask. How would a crisis look like for our organization? And I'd wait for them to answer. Then I'd get into the actual details that would provide me with an acceptable degree of assessing that candidate's crisis management capabilities. How would you handle such a crisis from an internal and external perspective? That second question is more than sufficient to provide any employer with an abundance of subsequent questions which would allow them to gauge that candidate's knowledge of the organization, the wider industry sector the organization operates in, the local, national, and regional or international ramifications of the crisis, as the case may be, the organization's stakeholder map and categories of publics, the right response mechanism that should be put in place to ensure a robust, appropriate, and ethical corporate reaction, the media and influencer landscape that can negatively impact or support the organization through a time of crisis. These are just six of many, many questions that could follow. Often, recruiters and potential employers are content with only asking woolly, non-targeted, and loose questions such as, what is your biggest achievement so far? What is your greatest weakness? Or where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? And more nonsense like this. If any potential employer or recruiter still expects a genuine answer to any of such questions, I'd say that they live in a virtual reality world. When you hire for highly specialized positions, such as crisis management, you are not hiring someone to sing your corporate song and praise your corporate mission, swearing allegiance to you for life. No, you are hiring the best people who could save your organization from making significant reputational mistakes, who could ensure that when the crisis hits, you are as prepared as you can be, and first and foremost, you are hiring someone whose advice and recommendations you can rely on and trust. Remember that trust and like are not mutually inclusive. There are many people whose competency I trust, although as individuals I cannot stand them. I know that they are among the best at what they do, and therefore I know that if I ever need their services, I can get the best I can find out there. Pardon me. In a pre-crisis or crisis situation, especially when it comes to reputational risks, it's best if personalities and friendships are left at the door. The moment the personalities clash or non-professional relationships are brought into the crisis room, it's likely you're on the path to failing to contain the crisis or to provide an appropriate response to it. A client of mine asked me a question recently. He asked, won't the crisis manager's style end up responding to the leader's behavior and expectations? My short answer was no. My longer answer was it depends. A crisis manager can have no style. Horizon scanning, constantly keeping an eye on the organization's risk register and stakeholder categories, understanding how the external environment, that is, competitors, market conditions, political instability, acts of God, etc., can negatively impact the business, have very little to do with style. These are utmost prerequisites which ensure that the crisis manager can do the job and he or she is trusted to do it well. The style of a crisis manager at most could be that of an introvert or an extrovert, a people person or a recluse. Crisis management is not change management or change leadership. In a crisis, you don't need to hold hands, praise people, and take them on a journey of relating and belonging, hugging trees and kissing babies. In a pre-crisis or crisis situation, the most important things that a crisis manager needs, and this is from my own experience, are unfettered access to all relevant information, ability to ask questions and be given the correct and factual answers, access to the organization's dedicated spokespersons and subject matter experts, trust in his or her ability to get the job done, and help the organization come as unscathed as possible from that crisis. A CEO or a chairman has his or her own leadership style, behavior, and expectations. As with anything else in the corporate world, managing expectations is key. Lowering expectations and over delivering are always very safe bets if one is in a new role or not senior enough. There is only that much a crisis manager can do, respond to, advise, and campaign. A significant part of what happens next is down to the leader of that organization. For instance, pardon me, Tony Hayward's I Want My Life Back did much more damage to BP's reputation and share price than anything his crisis or PR advisors could have done. For those of you who don't know, Tony Hayward was the CEO of BP when the Deepwater Horizon disaster happened in the Gulf of Mexico, which led to the death of 11 workers. At the end of the day, the official spokesperson of any organization is its leader. Because they lead the business, they are expected to make the best choices for it, including any advice they may receive from their advisors, be they crisis managers or not. And this brings me to another question I was asked recently by another client. Is there enough crisis leadership training for boards? No, there isn't. I do not know, maybe you do, of many organizations, public, private, or charitable, who put their boards through crisis leadership training. Much of any training for boards today revolves around the legal duties of board directors, anti-bribery and corruption, which of course are all necessary, and depending on the size and or the type of business, some boards receive training on diversity and inclusion, and many of them still remain as biased as they have been before. But let's not get into that now. Crisis leadership is not something that board members see as a necessity, since in the view of many, we can handle anything, or we are well prepared, or we haven't done anything wrong. Why should we need crisis leadership training? Many boards, sadly, only go through media training. How to smile nicely at the camera, how to deflect questions, how to look into the camera, and which type of posture would they express confidence and authority with? No disrespect to my media training colleagues, but no media training can prepare any board director or company executive for the psychological shock of having dozens of microphones stuck into your face, or a myriad of news agencies' reporters shouting at you or asking you questions so uncomfortable that you really cannot control your tone of voice, body language, and posture, let alone thinking of what you have been trained or told to say or do. Pardon me. While media training is necessary and to a certain degree serves well for corporate cosmetic purposes, particularly in times of peace, it is crisis management training that any board member or executive needs. When someone asks you the most uncomfortable questions, ranging from those of a personal nature to those of a professional nature, then you get to be comfortable with no matter what's thrown at you. In addition, by having these inquisitive and very aggressive questions asked, they may certainly aid in unveiling potential business or reputational risks that you, the board director, the non-executive director, or the executive have not thought of. Then you can do something about them and seek to decrease their level of risk from high to medium and perhaps to even low. When one leads a business, everyone's eyes are on that person. For the employees and the supply chain of that business, let alone the communities that business operates in. That board's or that executive team's ability to lead the company and its people in times of crisis is paramount. If, as an employee, pardon me, you can't trust the board to take the best decision in times of crisis for the company you work for, how can you trust them with anything else? If, as a shareholder in a business, you are not confident that the board can provide you with a healthy dividend and steer the business through choppy waters, how likely are you to provide them with further capital to invest? An organization's ability to respond in times of crisis is the ultimate test of its maturity, financial stability, alignment with its values and mission, and ultimately license to operate. Thank you.